If you have an unquenchable thirst to crush your bucket list, relentlessly pursue your dreams, and live life on your own terms, then turn up the volume and tune in. You're now listening to Zeph and Moses Blacksburg on the Year of Purpose podcast.
This episode of the Year of Purpose is brought to you by our brand new book, Life Rescripted. Find your purpose and design your dream life before the curtains close. If you want to be the first in line to receive a free digital copy from me, all you have to do is head on over to www.liferescriptedbook.com to find out more. Zeph and Blacksburg here with another round of the Year of Purpose podcast, and today I'm joined by Dominick Domasky. He's the author of the inspirational book, Don't Double Bread the Fish, creator and co-author of the recently released book, The Unofficial Guide to Fatherhood, and founder of the inspirational company, Motivation Champs. His greatest accomplishments are his 2 children, and he aspires to be the best husband and father he can be. He is a proud supporter of JDRF, an internet radio host, and successful cold-calling, door-knocking commercial insurance salesman. Don't Double Bread the Fish, Dominick's first inspirational book, was not written from a pedestal, but from the trenches of digging ditches, picking up cigarette butts, and overcoming countless failures. Dominick will never pretend to be an Olympic gold medalist or a business titan, and skipped a beat there. Dominick will never pretend to be an Olympic gold medalist or business titan, and he'll be the first to admit he's just a guy who has failed, been benched, suffered setbacks, lawsuits, punches to the face, and got up and brushed himself off. He has no ill will of the past, but looks back and finds humor and strength. As the old saying goes, that which does not kill us only makes us stronger. And he's currently finishing up his 3rd book, The Journey of a Grunt, which he expects to be released in 2016. What's going on, Dominick?
Hey, Zeph, and thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being here. And, I'm totally down to just dive right into it. I know that you're a boxing fan and you've got some stories about, getting knocked down, getting back up that have led you to this point. So, maybe we can just start with, what it was like growing up for you and some of the things that have occurred in your life and that got you to this point.
Hey, sure thing. Well, you say I'm a boxing fan, and my whole family grew up boxing, but the only thing I was good at was taking a punch. So I definitely grew up getting beat up a few times, and if you look close, I got big scars over my eyes and things like that. I was cut from the team. I'm a guy, I say I'm the king of failure. I'm one of these guys that everything I've tried, at some point in my life, I've failed. But at the same point, you pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and keep on swinging. It's kind of like boxing's almost a metaphor for how I live my life. You get knocked down, the ref's counting, and you get back up and give it all you got.
Yeah, man. And so, growing up for you, I'm curious to hear if there were any lessons that apply now, because I know that one of your favorite things is being a father and being the best husband and father that you can. So what was it like growing up, with your family? I mean, I'm an oldest child out of 7 younger brothers and 1 younger sister. And so fortunately, I never got beaten up, but I might have done some of the beating up when I was a kid. So tell me, what was it like for you, and how has parenting changed, from your parents' generation to yours?
Well, definitely. First thing you got to know is I'm a guy who idolized his father. My dad, if he's 5'10", I think he's 6'5". If he can lift 100 pounds, I think he can lift 200 pounds. So my whole life I saw this guy as larger than life, and he treated me good. He was always there for me, and he ruled with an iron fist. So I think in some ways I always try to probably live up to those expectations, make them happy, and be the father that he was, and also learn from the things that he taught me. I worked for my dad, and I used to shovel ditches and pick up cigarette butts for my dad's company. And I'd tell my dad, that shirt you're wearing is black, and he'd say, no, that's blue. I'd tell my dad, oh, we should do this today, and he'd say, no, you're gonna do the exact opposite today. And he'd been in business 40 years. Who was I to tell him any different? So when it comes to raising my own kids, I try to be a lot like him, but also like you said, that it is a different generation, where now our kids have iPods and Beats headphones, and it's like where we sit in the corner as kids and like spoke when we're spoken to. Now my own kids are like putting on a show at all times, and you're almost encouraging it.
Very interesting. So stuff's changing. That's kind of how my life has been. Is I was raised to believe that there's a script that we follow of growing up, going to college, getting a job, and you do the same thing for like 40 or 45 years, and that's what you do. And things are very different now. There's a lot of people my age who have been able to create a business for themselves and don't have to work a job. And so it's very interesting just to see in such a short period of time how it's changed for the different generations. So you've got 3 books. You're currently working on your 3rd one. What led you ultimately to start your first book, and tell us a little bit about what that was about?
Sure. Like I said, I grew up, I'm a guy, really, I got beat up, got butter wiped in my hair, cut from the teams. And I remember when I was 13, I was going out for a basketball team and I stunk, thought I was Michael Jordan, dressed all goofy, and got cut from the team. And when I got cut from the team, my dad gave me a book by Og Mandino. It was an inspirational book called The World's Greatest Salesman. And at the time I read it, and I didn't really know much about reading. I was a silly kid, but I read this book and I got one principle out of it, and was persist until I succeed. And I kept that book for years and years and years, but I kept that one lesson. I got persist until I succeed. I must persist until I succeed. And that entered my life at that point. And I started reading all these inspirational books. I read that book over and over. It has scrolls in it. It has 10 scrolls where if you read them 30 straight days, they become habit. So as other things happened in my life, maybe when I went broke in business, read these types of books. When I got cut from the team, when I got beat up, when whatever was happening, I read these books, read more books, more books, more books. And I became a student of inspiration. The guys like the Dale Carnegies, the John C. Maxwells, all these legends, Zig Ziglar, all of them. I read all of them. And then after going broke, almost going to jail, wanted by the IRS, I started thinking I could write a book like that. I got something to say that's a little bit different. I'm not coming from ancient Babylon or something like that. I'm coming from, a pop culture, 2000 take on things. And that's why I wrote the book.
Very neat. And so you mentioned there that you had a time where you were going for broke here. So tell me a little bit about, what it's like and what happened there, and how do you pick yourself back up from something like that? Because I think that a lot of people listening in right now, at least, who maybe haven't taken a leap, who haven't started a business yet, I'm sure one of their biggest fears is going broke, because money is a huge issue when you're taking a leap of faith.
Right. And not only did I go for broke, I went broke multiple times over. So what I would say to anybody is, you go for it and you live to fight another day. I have, the only regrets I have are that I took it so far. I don't sit here 10 years later and think, wow, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or wow, I wish I would have tried something more. I wish I would have took it to, I did it all. I risked going to jail. I risked becoming a guy that I didn't even want to become to try to make it. So when I look back at it, I'm over it. I'm through it. When I got knocked down and was, flat broke, owed the IRS thousands of dollars a month, owed every creditor in town. I paid them back. I paid them all back little by little for months, for years, where, we could barely eat at home because the IRS came first. They garnished your wages, that kind of thing. But yeah, I knew I got through. I knew I could get through it. And even when, life's like a roller coaster, and I'm sure someday I might be up and someday I'll be down, but like that roller coaster, it keeps coming back to the beginning again. So one of the things I'd say to anybody, you, me, somebody out there who's struggling, or somebody out there that's real high, don't get too high, don't get too low. Life's like a roller coaster. You might come back down. You might get back to that beginning again. So just try to be even keel. And that's what I've done. I'll enjoy my life. And now I've learned, if I have no money, I'll have a heck of a life. If I end up with a lot of money, I'll have a great life. That is not what defines my success.
And you clearly have four walls around you right now. So, things have definitely come back. You've been able to pull yourself out of that, and it's great to see that. What are some of the other, obstacles that you've overcome? Financially, that's a huge one, right? Just curious, going into fatherhood, I'm sure there are obstacles. It's uncharted territory, at least for you. And just curious to hear if there's anything else in your life that you've overcome that, we all could pull a big lesson from.
Yeah, sure. And one of the things that what I've learned is everybody's going through stuff, and I'll tell you stories about me or being broke or about my children, and you'll say, wow, but there's somebody else that would give everything to have that same situation, to have your eyes, my ears, your life, your breath, your job, that fancy microphone you have, like you said, four walls around them. But me and my wife struggled for years to have children. A lot of people struggle to have children, and we did. And then when we finally had children, when my son was 3 years old, he was diagnosed as an insulin diabetic. So that means as a little kid with tiny little skinny arms, this big, that we now had to give him about 8 to 10 shots a day, poke his fingers, monitor what he eats, get up at midnight, get up at 3 o'clock, go to the schools to make sure that every monitor his diet, go to the school to make sure they weren't putting anything in his mouth that shouldn't be in his mouth. But to my point, at when that first happened, when he was first diagnosed, it was almost like the end of the world, and I write inspirational books. I try to be as motivational as I can. I'm a student of inspiration, but it's hard, you have those hard times and you wonder, can I make it through? Can I? And then when you come out on the other end, it's not that bad. Like I said, somebody else would give everything to only be able to give their kid a shot and their sugar levels be okay. I'm a lucky guy, and that's what I've learned. I'm lucky, so stuff's happened and I may be down again. So be it.
And so what do you think is the differentiator between us or Dale Carnegie or, John Maxwell, any of them? What is it that made them so, for lack of a better term, great? I think anyone can be inspirational, right? And part of that is sharing your own story and having overcome some sort of a situation. But what do you think differentiates them from the rest of the crowd?
They're the pioneers, those guys. But I think what they're able to do is there's so many people that, and I'm sure, I hate to say it, I'm sure you have it, where you interview somebody or they come on or you meet somebody and all they do is talk about themselves, how great they are, everything they did is so special. What Dale Carnegie was able to do is put the emphasis on everybody else. And I think when you empower other people, which those guys have done, what you're doing on this show here, empowering me, empowering everybody listening. But if you're able to empower the others so they can feel what's inside of them and then go do whatever these great things they're going to accomplish, I think that's what those guys can do better than anybody else.
So it's a matter of pulling yourself and your own identity out of it and really being able to encourage other people into action.
Yeah, I'm just a messenger, like with my inspiration, whether it be fatherhood or my first book, Don't Double Bread the Fish, I'm just the messenger, telling whether it be persist until you succeed or you wake up, never give up on something you love, or when one door closes, a new door opens. I'm just the messenger. And, when people see those lessons and all I'm saying is, hey, I made it through. And look, when I grew up, I had buck teeth like this. I was real skinny. I've been broke. If I can make it through, I'm sure all these talented people out there, twice as talented, twice as handsome, can do far better than I could ever do.
And so tell me about, where were you in life when you started your second book, and what was your second book, and what did you talk about in there?
Okay, well, the second book is The Unofficial Guide to Fatherhood, and that just actually came out in April. And I actually have another book, that The Journey of a Grunt, that I'm finishing right now, and I had been writing that one for years. The Journey of a Grunt is about every job, task, or chore you ever had and what you can learn from it. But the Unofficial Guide to Fatherhood, this fancy book here, what happened is I was talking to one of my buddies on the phone. His name's Brian P. Swift. And like you said, I have a podcast, and I met this guy, Brian P. Swift. He broke his neck playing high school football. He's a quadriplegic and adopted 3 kids. He just started a nonprofit called SOAR. Great, super inspirational guy, a guy I lean on. So when my kids were acting up, but having trouble with my son's anger issues and attitude and things like that, I'd call Brian P. Swift and we'd just be shooting the bull. And he had written a book before, and we're talking, and he told me a story. I was telling my kids freaking out every time I tell them something. Anger. He said, you know what I do with my teenage kids? He said, when they're freaking out like that, he said, I give them a big hug and tell them I love you. And I said to him, Brian, we should write a book. So the next time, he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Next time my son was freaking out, I grabbed him, and I'm like, hugging him. He's like, get off me. But just settle down for 1 minute, and so I reached back out to Brian P. Swift on it. Once he said we should write a book, I was in. I immediately called another guy, and I told him me and this great guy, Brian P. Swift, are writing a book. So I called another author. I knew that he had lost his wife to cancer. His name's Joe Walco. He's raising 2 teenage kids. And I said, hey, I'm writing a book with this other guy. Really, I wasn't writing a book. I just came up with the idea. And I said, hey, I'm writing a book. He said, I'm in. I said, but you got to ask somebody else. And that's how we got 9 guys from all across the country. We've never even all been in the same room together. Only, I think 2 of us have ever been in the room together at one time, but from all different walks of life, we put this book together. And so my point early on there was I was writing this other book for years and years and years. I still have it, and it's not out yet. But this one came together in like 6 months and was out, and now it's actually in Barnes and Nobles and stuff like that. So it's crazy.
Very cool. So you've got clearly a lot of persistence to stay with these projects. I think that you've got a lot of drive to do this stuff because, this is totally separate from some of the work that you do and things like that. So it's great to have all these different aspects of your life. And it seems like you've created this very well-rounded lifestyle for yourself. Maybe talk about a little bit about, figuring out your meaning in life and what really drives you to success. And, was there a time where you felt very lost and didn't know what your direction was going to be? And now looking back, it all kind of makes sense how it lines up.
Yeah, I think definitely there's been days where, like when I had the restaurant and I'm going broke and, the creditors are after you. I think there was definitely days where I wanted to pull the covers over my face and just sleep a little longer, maybe sleep through that day. One of the things I write about is survival days, where there's some days that you just got to get through and live to fight another day. So I think with me, you started seeing, whether it be talking or seeing other people going through things you're going through, and you start to maybe write something down. And like now I'll go speak, and every once in a while when I'm speaking, somebody will come up to me at a break or stand up in the back of the room and say, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was going through these problems. And you think, yeah, okay. There's like, you get these tingles up your spine where you're like, yeah, okay, I'm doing it. And then as you start to find that passion where, a lot of that stuff I do for free because I enjoy it so much. And that's when, when you go to bed at night, I always say, when you go to bed at night and you can't wait to get up the next day, or I wake up in the middle of the night and write stuff down, that's when you're supercharged and super inspired. So yeah, I think there's times where people are lost, and you just got to keep on baby steps. I always say, move forward at something every day, little by little. You don't have to, the old saying is, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. So baby steps.
Yeah. And I can definitely relate to, when you're really excited about something, being excited to go to sleep because that the next day you get to work on it again and again and again. For me, unfortunately, it's the reverse. I can't fall asleep because I want to keep working on it. So my book that's actually at the editors right now and should be finishing up this week, it's called Life Rescripted, but I've spent many sleepless nights on it because I was too excited to even go to sleep. So it's great when you can really really find something that lights you up so much, and being able to share that with people. And I think you also mentioned something else there, that you'd be surprised how when you start sharing things that you've learned or gone through, how many other people have either had that same problem or have been looking for the same solution or things like that. So I think it's great being able to write a book. It's a whole new world to me, and I'm sure you've had a blast with it, because you find that once you do get going and get moving with it, you realize that there's a bigger change you can create in the world. Which kind of leads me to the next one that you're working on, the third one. So it's not out yet, but it's called The Journey of a Grunt. And where does that come from? What was that all about?
Well, it comes from, like I said, I used to work for my dad. I'd tell him that shirt's black, he'd say it's blue, and picking up cigarette butts and like raking leaves, picking up cigarette butts, shoveling ditches, cleaning poop, whether it was working for my dad, whether it was when, I used to work at TGI Fridays, had to wear those items with flair and, pick up the dirty dishes and all that stuff like that. And I say a lot of times that I was the grunt, and the grunt's the guy on the front lines or the guy that's down in the ditches. But then as I read one time, or as I wrote, I'm writing this story, for years, talking to people like you. And one of my buddies told me, he's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being the grunt. And I wasn't trying to paint the grunt in a negative light. I was actually saying that we've all been there. There's going to be a day where you have to clean up the cigarette butts, where you have to empty the trash. It is what it is. At some days, we're all going to be the grunt. We've all been, no matter what job you have, no matter what job, task, or chore you've ever had, we're all going to be down, and it's going to teach us something. I mean, whether you're the president or the lowest man on the totem pole, that task, that chore made you better, it made you stronger, and it made you who you are today. And that's what the journey of a grunt's about.
Very interesting. So, and I'm sure that is something that a lot of people listening in right now could really use. It's about putting in the grunt work and getting to where you want to be. So looking back, here you are right now. You have four walls around you. You've got a great family. How do you just express gratitude and throughout the day, how do you take care of yourself mentally and physically, just to make sure that you can live your best life? Because it's tough to be a good husband and a good father if you're not taking care of yourself first.
Right.
So how are you going about doing that?
Well, I think one of the things you got to know is there's like your life's like a big pie chart, and there's family, there's faith, there's health, there's friends. And I think, you can add more components, job, whatever you want to add in there. But you can't, if I wouldn't take care of myself, let's say I was putting terrible things into my body, or not exercising, or not reading books, all of a sudden you hurt something else in your life. So I think I'm always challenging myself at whatever it is. Maybe it's being a better husband. Like, I got to be a better husband, just what could I do to make my wife happier? Whether being a dad, as I write the book on fatherhood, a lot of the reason I wrote a book on fatherhood is because I knew I needed to be better. And I was willing to ask other people. That's the thing about having these guys. I asked these guys, I said, what would you like to leave to other fathers? What would you like to leave to your children? And so they pass it on, and they say, here's how we'd like to help you out. So I think, to me, you try to get better at everything every day. And eventually maybe I'll be great at something. No, but I think I just try to be better every day at everything, little by little. I can't, not leaps and bounds, but just a little. Maybe I could tell my kids I love them. Maybe I could make one more phone call. Maybe I could not say or whatever in an interview. One more thing I could be better at. Punctuation in a book. One more thing.
One more thing. It's funny. It makes me think of a lot of Apple's stuff, a lot of their big announcements. They were always infamous for having one more thing. And I think that it wasn't just all about them and launching a product. I think that one thing is so important in our lives. I'm actually reading the book right now called The One Thing, and it's all about figuring, what is the one thing that knocks the one domino over that,
Right.
ultimately puts everything into motion. And so there's so much of that right now, and we try to overcomplicate things and searching for answers, and it really doesn't have to be as tough as it seems. And I know that some people listening in might think that life is really hard and that there's a lot of heartache, there's a lot of hardship, there's a lot of effort and struggle, and I don't know, I feel like it doesn't have to be that way, as long as we can look at each obstacle and each thing that comes into our life as something that is ultimately going to lead us to where we're going to go.
Right. I think that which does not kill you only makes you stronger. So there, like you said, there's going to be all these things that come into your life, but like our friend the Grunt, if you can learn from each of those circumstances, each time I was punched, okay, I was punched. Maybe I shouldn't have said what I said. When I was broke, maybe I shouldn't have handled things the way I handled them. Maybe so you learn. When my kids were misbehaving, maybe you take accountability and you figure out, okay, now I'm accountable. How do I get better? And if you can do that, I don't think it is that much of a challenge. Like you said, you just got to be present, appreciate what you have. Even when you're going through all those things, you still have a lot that everybody else would kill for. Would give everything to have four walls or your breath, your eyes, that kind of thing. Your children, be thankful. Children are being bad. Somebody else would love to have children. Like I said, we struggled for years. Somebody else would, be so happy to have children. So wherever you're at, appreciate. Even when you're down and out, appreciate it. Because when you're up here, it's going to make you so much stronger because you were down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to round things all off here, if you could simplify this all and kind of boil it down to just like one or two sentences of, how you can live your best life, be the best person, both for yourself and for others, what would you say?
I think if you act in love, if you get better, if you make all your decisions in love with your family's best interest in mind, you move forward every day, you get better every day, everything's going to work out for you. When you're down, don't give up. Just like we started out the interview, we'll start out the same way you close it. When you get knocked down, just get back up and keep swinging.
Awesome. I think that's the best way to summarize that. And Dominick, this has been a great discussion. How can people find out more about, your two books you have out now? You've got a book coming out early next year, and just find out more about you.
Hey, if you want to, one of the main places I'm at, I might even tweet something you say one of these days, is Twitter @DomD1000. That's @DomD1000. I post motivational pictures and quotes all day long. And then you can look me up at motivationchamps.com. That's www.motivationchamps.com. And you can get me for speaking engagements, or I sign every book that leaves there. Just go to motivationchamps.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending some time with me, Dominick. And definitely everyone listening, check out motivationchamps.com.
Thank you, sir.
This episode of The Year of Purpose is brought to you by our brand new book, Life Rescripted. Find your purpose and design your dream life before the curtains close. If you want to be the first in line to receive a free digital copy from me, all you have to do is head on over to www.liferescriptedbook.com to find out more. I've discovered what I think is the world's most effective process to design your path in life. It'd be a shame if I didn't share it. In Life Rescripted, you will discover the #1 strategy for determining your life purpose and how you can start a new path today, the 5X life hack rule for accomplishing your dreams and designing your life on your own terms 5 times faster, the ultimate solution for fear and how you can leverage it right now to make this year your best year yet, and so much more. Reserve your spot in line to get a free copy at www.liferescriptedbook.com, and I will see you in the next episode.